And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much for being here, and as always, I hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have the pleasure of having Betsy Maguire, a playwright, here as my guest today. And Betsy, thanks so much for being here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled. And as we were just talking before we started, you know, Lauren Yarger, who was here last week, is the League of Professional Theater Women Connecticut chapter. I said to her, I need a great guest, and she said you.
Well, that's very nice of
because
her.
You're also a member, I'm a member. It's a great membership to be a part of.
It sure is.
How, before we get started, which you and I had talked about, let's go into your background. Let's introduce you to the viewer.
Okay. Thank you. Again, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you.
I think I'm here because I'm a playwright, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I certainly did not have theater or performing or writing in my background at all growing up. So it's kind of interesting how I got to it. I grew up in Elmira, New York, which might play later because I worked for the Mark Twain House later. And Mark Twain spent 17 summers in Elmira. So I grew up sort of knowing about him. And then I went off to college and became a computer science major and worked for IBM. And then I raised a family. And I joined a newcomers group in Simsbury, Connecticut, and many of the members were members of the Theater Guild of Simsbury or some other community theater around us. And I thought, well, gee, that might be fun. And I like to sing, and they were doing musicals, and so I auditioned and I was hooked.
Now, you were saying before we started taping that acting was part of your life before playwriting.
Yes.
Tell us about the acting.
Yeah. So I started, like I said, I started off doing musicals and had a lot of fun, and then I did some non-musical plays, and it was great until the schedule became very hard for me. I had 3 little kids at the time, and my husband was traveling all the time, and I couldn't get babysitters, and the schedule just worked out to be too difficult. So I thought, well, I'm not going to act for a while, I guess. I think I need to find some other way to stay involved with theater. So I thought maybe I should try and write a play. And I went to my local library, and I took plays down off the shelves, and I just started reading. And so I think that year I read every single play that was in stock on shelf. If it started with 812, if that was the call number, I read it. And then after I read all these wonderful plays, I sat down and I wrote a play.
And as you and I had talked before we started taping, which I'm going to say because we've spent a lot of nice time together before we started, that other playwrights have said read a lot of plays. Do you agree with that? To be able to write?
Do agree. I do agree because I didn't study it. You know, you can take playwriting in college or you can take playwriting courses, but I never had that in my wheelhouse. So I think reading plays and appreciating plays and analyzing plays and reading analysis of plays is a great way to learn. Great. Or to go see theater. See as much theater as you can.
How was it for you, because we're introducing you as a playwright, although I have playwright, actor, producer, director, which we'll talk about as also part of the plethora of the things that you have as part of who you are, which is wonderful. How did you decide that playwriting was going to be so important to you? Was it easy to write your first play?
It was so much fun. That's all I remember is, you know, this was 25 years ago. I do remember it just felt great to sit down. It's a very solitary pursuit, which suited me. And you just get the creative juices flowing. And it's very much, you know, I think my math background helps. It is almost like putting a puzzle together because you can write so far and then you say, oh, maybe that character in the beginning should be this profession. And then you go back and you have to fit the pieces together to make it all make sense. But anyway, I loved the whole process. And it was a 35-minute play called Heart Suspended. And I didn't know what to do with it once I wrote it. So this was very early internet days, but I remember you could go see where playwriting contests were happening. And the Association for Theater and Higher Education was sponsoring a national playwriting contest. And I submitted it, and it came in second. And I remember thinking like, oh, I guess I can do this. And then I just started writing more plays.
The next question is, how many plays have you written, and is it something that you like to do?
I love to do it, and I have written 40 plays. 40? Yeah.
Oh my
now,
gosh.
you know, a lot of them are one acts. A lot of them are short plays that I would submit to festivals. I love to create a play and then just go see it on stage. Even once, I'm not big on doing things many, many times. Once I've seen my play, I move on, I write a new one, then So I think the first half of my playwriting journey was writing these short plays. It was very fun. And then the second half was more doing in-depth research on people in history, particularly women, and writing about them in longer pieces.
What do you have? We're here in 2025.
Yes.
What do you have happening this year?
Yes, quite a bit actually.
Oh,
so,
good.
Right. So not this weekend, but next, March 7th, 8th, and 9th at Farmington Valley Stage Company. They're hosting me. And we're doing a show called The Seat Beside Her 2. The reason there's a 2 there is I did The Seat Beside Her last year, and it was so much fun we decided to do a whole new thing. It's, I choose women from history, and I put them together in conversation and write little plays about them. So this year I wrote 6 short plays and a monologue, and the time period starts in 1911, goes right up to 2017. It's a series of plays done as a staged reading, and that's really been a great project. So I find the actors and we rehearse. We're having our first rehearsal actually tomorrow for that, but it goes up in a week and a half. So it goes up very quickly, but it's really fun. And the audience was great last year. You know, we did these 4 short plays last year, and people wrote to me after. It was quite extraordinary, and said, "I'm so intrigued by this one woman that you found. How did you find her? Where can I read more about her?" And it was really fun. So it's in honor of Women's History Month. I like doing those kind of projects in March.
Tell us about Women's History Month, what that's all about.
Yeah, so it's the whole month of March, and it has in it International Women's Day, as well as the whole month is celebrating women's history. Now the League has big plans for March this year, and what they're trying to do is market women-centric projects during the whole month of March. So they're really good at advertising their things, and then they have the Women's Playwright Festival is taking place in 3 different locations in Connecticut this month, and I submitted a play to them for consideration, and it was accepted. So they're doing a play I wrote about Bonnie and Clyde's mothers. It's called 30 Days. The significance of the title is that these 2 women, while their children, Clyde and Bonnie, were on the run, they secretly saw them 30 times while they were running from the law. They also each got 30 days as a prison sentence after their children were ambushed and killed for harboring fugitives.
Oh,
so,
my.
yeah. And that was, I love to research and I love to write after I've researched something almost to death. I kind of put it aside, but everything's in my head as I'm writing about these mostly women, like I said.
I was going to say, what draws you to write about women? I know that's something that interests you.
It really does. And this came to me later. I think, you know, I was writing these little one-act plays, and it was really fun. And then I was hired by the Mark Twain House in Hartford to write their living history program, which was taking the servant staff or the family of Mark Twain, his friends, and writing scripts for them. And I loved writing about his wife, who was very much a feminist and a strong woman. I loved writing about the lady's maid that was with them, Katie Leary, for many years. And I became interested in researching women and writing about them. I loved learning about Harriet Beecher Stowe, who was across the way from them. And my first commissioned piece after I left the Mark Twain House was at the New England Air Museum. And I decided they wanted a mystery. They wanted me to write a mystery for them, and we did it in the hangars at the museum. And I created a character named Clara Cloud. She was fictional, but she encounters all of the fly girls, those early women in aviation. And I just thought, this is really what I like to do. I like to research women and write about them. And so that's kind of what I've been doing since, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years.
And you like things from an older time period as well.
I do. It was really fun being at the Mark Twain House, learning about the kind of late 1800s. I thought that was the Gilded Age here, the rise of spiritualism. Interesting time in our history. I would say in school, I was never, I don't know if you were a history buff. I certainly was not. Going through high school or college, it just didn't interest me. And I think what we were studying was we were learning dates, at least I was,
right.
Wars, generals, presidents. It just didn't spark anything in me. But I think there are a lot of women that we don't know about that were just amazing and fascinating. And sometimes it's hard to find information on them, but once you do, it just sparks something in me, and I just want to write about them.
So you've written 40 plays. Are a lot of them have women as the subject matter?
Lately they have. wrote a pretty interesting play a couple years ago about, I live in Simsbury, Connecticut, so it was called The Day History Came to Town, The Women of Simsbury. And so what I did, just as a tie into what we were just talking about, there's a book called 100 Years of Simsbury, or 3 Centuries of Simsbury, or something. And I went to the book to find fascinating women, and they were not in there. And I thought, that's what I'm going to write about. I'm going to write about, I know there's fascinating women in our cemetery that, from history that I can write about, but I can't find anything on them. And so the Historical Society was wonderful and helped me research about 8 women, and it was about them coming to the town as statues, but coming alive and telling their stories, not the stories of their father, who were generals, or their brothers who went off to war, but their own stories. And that really is what I love to do.
Okay, let's hold that thought and we'll take a break.
Sure,
Okay.
okay.
I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Everyone knows the BBB is the Better Business Bureau, but depending on what you need, it's the Better Plumber Bureau, the Better Auto Mechanic Bureau, the Better Accountant Bureau. That's because the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better check that business out first so you don't get ripped off bureau. Be smart. Always look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire, and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, I hope you're enjoying the show. My conversation continues on with Betsy Maguire. And Betsy, what we were talking about during the break was your production company, your theater company. Tell us about that. How did you start it? Why did you start it?
Sure. So about 3 years ago, I had written a play called Our Town, Simsbury, and it was sort of a take on Thornton Wilder's classic play, Our Town, which takes place in Grover's Corners, a fictional town. And I thought I would take the structure of his play and write about the town I'm living in, Simsbury. And so I wrote this full-length play. It was the first play I wrote that was full-length for a traditional stage. I was really getting into writing for unconventional theater spaces like cemeteries or museums. So I wrote this stage play, and I decided to produce it myself. So I thought, I'm just going to create a theater company. How hard can it be? And it came with a lot of challenges and a lot of fun. And so that was the first thing that my theater company produced by itself, was this play.
And we have many art individuals, theater individuals that watch the program that would like to start their own theater company.
Sure.
How did you do it?
So I did it specifically to create this play, but when I was looking back, that was 2022, I realized I produced 4 plays that year. So it was challenging. I think for me, I had a network of actors. I have a network of actors. I think that's important because I was acting so much, and Connecticut's a small theater community. And you have to do something that I am not very good at. You have to know how to ask for help and ask for volunteers and ask for advice from people and not feel like you are bothering them, or you find the people that are out there that really are champions for you. And I had so many people that were so wonderful. I mean, our production staff was 15 to 20 people for this one play. And so I had to reach out, or they reached out to me and said, I'd like to help you with this. And so you have to sort of humble yourself and say, I can't do it by myself. I can't do everything. I can't run concessions and be an usher and direct and do all these things. So you have to really sort of dig deep and say, I need people around me to do this.
What are the particulars to create a theater company? It's a 501c3?
I have not taken that step yet.
Okay.
So I did not go that far, and I'm glad I didn't. I think it's a very smart move if you're going to do a theater company to become a nonprofit, a true 501c.
nonprofit,
I
right.
really do. But what I learned from my first year, because I did 4 plays. I did a play at the New England Air Museum. I did that history play we talked about. I wrote a play on commission for a vineyard up in Granby. It was called Wine with Winnie, and we did it in the vineyard, and it was great fun. And then Our Town, Simsbury. At the end of that year, I thought, I'm not sure I want to be a theater producer. So my theater company, Playland Productions, was really going to be for writing mostly and getting commission works, and then having other people produce or having me produce with them. But being a sole producer for a stage show was too much for me, I thought. But if that's the route you're going to go and you're going to try and get space and so forth, 501c is the way to go, for sure.
So Playland Productions is your theater company name?
It is.
Is there a reason why you chose that name?
It sounded fun to me. I find everything about theater so much fun, and I thought Playland, it just sounded fun. Sounds like an amusement park. Well, it is an amusement park in Rye, New York.
Yeah, it is.
So it just sounded fun, yeah.
Speaking of that, did you ever think about anything else outside of theater? I asked many people in theater, film, television, video, commercials, any of that move you at all to pursue it?
I don't enjoy film or commercials. I've done a little bit of it. I personally find the process a little tedious, the stop-start, how long it takes in between. I don't like the idea of, I love live theater. I like the idea that it's a moment and then it's gone. I don't like the idea of being on film forever for me or anyone else to see. So live theaters for me is where it's at, yeah.
PlaylandProductionsCT.com, your website.
Yes.
Tell us what the viewer
Not
will
a great
find.
active website because I don't have a lot of shows I'm ticketing this year. So I'm partnering with Farmington Valley Stage this year, and I'm partnering with Dionysus Theater in Enfield, and I'm not ticketing those shows myself. So there's not, if you go to PlaylandProductionsCT.com, you'll see an overview of what I'm doing this year with links. But it's not a robust, wonderful website. I try, but that's not where my talent lies either.
Yeah, that's okay. Not everybody's website is going to be amazing.
Yeah, but if you want to know what I'm doing this year, it certainly will tell you.
Speaking of this year, what are your thoughts or plans for 2025, or have you looked into 2026?
Sure. Not a lot for 2026. I am. My goals for this year was to do The Seat Beside Her 2, which I said is in a week and a half. And then I am co-writing a show with Doreen Cohn at Farmington Valley Stage called The Golden Age of Television. And that's the first weekend in April. And that's sort of it's like music and trivia and little audience participation. It sort of is a salute to those early days of TV, the 50s and the 60s. And I wrote 2 short plays for that show, and we have a read-through tonight with the actors, and so that'll be fun. And then Gabby Mendelson of Dionysus Theater invited me into her theater space. She just built a theater in Enfield, which is beautiful, and she invited me to come this summer on July 18th and 19th and present. It's called Behind the Curtain, A Playwright's Journey, and I'm going to talk about, it's mostly humorous anecdotes about my stumbling into playwriting and what's happened since, and I'm going to have excerpts from plays and a wine and cheese reception, and I'm very excited to look back and have some fun with that.
As a playwright, how long does it take you to write a play or one act? What's your time frame?
So I'm getting to be a much faster writer. There's a lot of great playwrights in Connecticut, and I am happy to know many of them. And I'm always amazed at how quickly they can write a play. We talked about Jacques Lamar. He's one, right? He writes so fast, and what he writes is always great. So I've always thought, gosh, I wish I was a fast writer. I tend to be pretty slow. But lately, because I've had time pressure to get things done, or for The Seat Beside Her 2, I had to write 7 one-act plays, I'm a little faster. So I would say, if I'm researching something, once the research is done and I've put it aside, writing the play is 3 weeks for a one act, I think. I can pretty much crank something out that I'm proud of. Yeah. But that used to take me much, much longer.
Really?
Yeah.
Is 3 weeks a pretty decent, is that a
For
normal
a short
time frame?
play, a 10, 15-minute play, I don't know. For me, it seems fast. So I'm like, good, okay. It only took me, about 3 weeks to do that. But it depends. And I do love to research. And I will do that forever. Like sometimes I don't know when to stop.
We are both members of the Connecticut chapter of
Yes.
the League of Professional Theater Women. What are your thoughts about the chapter?
Oh, it's wonderful. If you are involved with theater, acting, directing, stage managing, they are, first of all, as you know, they're very welcoming, and they want new members, and they embrace new members, and they are great communicators. I mean, we are a small state, but they have events all over the state. I'm up in the northern part, you're down here on the shoreline. I mean, there's things all over, and they're so busy, and they're so excited about the projects they do and supporting people, and the membership comes out to support you, and then you go see what other people are doing. It's fantastic. It really is fantastic. Well run, lovely people, and real cheerleaders for each other. I love it.
You're in the newsletter a lot. Do you get to go to the functions?
I do. I do when I can. I really enjoy it. I wasn't quite sure about how to partake, at first. I wasn't used to, like I said, I love writing because it's solitary. I like doing things. I'm not a co-collaborator a lot. I like to create things off on my own in my own little space. And so I thought, how am I gonna get involved? But gosh, it was so easy. They make it so easy. I mean, there's networking events, even just going to see, another playwright show. You're just welcomed in, and they have receptions, and it's wonderful. Can't say enough.
And to individuals that are watching us are saying, getting involved with an organization, is it worth it? What are your thoughts?
It absolutely is worth it. If you love theater, if you love to create theater, or even just absorb theater, I think they are really looking for all kinds of people and creatives to come join them. Absolutely is worth it.
Speaking of theater, and I ask this often, what are your thoughts about theater in the state or in general? How's it doing?
I hope it's doing well. I was hearing, I think we talked a little bit at the break, right after COVID, I think was a really tough time to convince audience members to come back, to convince audience members to subscribe and commit. But the shows that I've seen all across the state are so great, up to pre-COVID levels. The audiences I'm seeing are very good. And I'm seeing a lot of people starting, like I did, their own little theater companies lately, which I think there's always room for more, and I think that's encouraging. Doing really great stuff.
As a theater producer and creating your own theater company, do you have your own space? Do you need your own space?
Oh gosh, that's one thing I wish we did have in Connecticut, and I talked to other people about this. I wish I had my own space. At least I wish I had my own rehearsal space.
Yeah.
So actors that I work with are very used to rehearsing in my house.
Oh, okay.
Which is fine. It's fine. But the show we did at the winery, for example, I needed a certain footprint for the actors to move around, and I remember we rehearsed in my driveway. I would set up all the set pieces, in my driveway. If it rained, we'd run into the garage and rehearse, and it's a little challenging, but it's fun. It's but I do not have my own space, and so I have rented space from the town. I have worked with other theaters and used their space, but no, I don't. And I'm not sure I'm big enough or have enough projects to really warrant my own space.
So how is it to have it at your own home?
It's fun.
That's probably an interesting thing that people don't hear about. Sometimes it does have to come into your home.
Absolutely. So tomorrow we're having a rehearsal for The Seat Beside Her 2, all of those plays. I have 5 actors and a stage manager coming to my house, and I have, we're sitting on stools at music stands. It is a traditional staged reading format, actors in black, that kind of thing. And I need the width of the stage, in my house to find, and chairs, and, set it up for my actors so they feel like they're sort of on a stage. Once you do the table read, then I want them to feel like that they're standing up and getting down and knowing where to look, and just like they're on a stage. So it's challenging. It's fun.
For someone who would like to work for you or with you, can they get in touch with you through the website?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My email addresses are on there, and I have a Facebook presence. Playland Productions has a Facebook page. I would love to hear from people. And I have through that. So it's fun. Yeah.
We are slowly starting to run out of time.
Okay.
What are your closing thoughts for the viewers? What would you like them to take away from our interview today?
I think in general, I would just like to say, in these times, we were talking about this, I think it's very challenging for people today. There's a lot of uncertainty. If you can go to the theater, any theater, go. Go. Because it's, you know, even if it's a drama with heavy material, you're feeling something and with other people around you and you're having this community experience. I think there's nothing like it. Or go to a comedy and laugh. You know, it doesn't have to be my show, anybody's show. Just go and support theater. It's so important.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. This was so fun. It went so quickly.
It's been so informative, and thank you for sharing your life with us.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. In case you need to reach me, I'm at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day today, and as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll see you next time.